This is Barry Zalma speaking for Claim School Incorporated's Zalma's Insurance Fraud Letter for September 15, 2023. This volume 27, number 18, is the 18th issue of the 27th year of publication and provides multiple articles on how to deal with insurance fraud in the United States. You can subscribe to Zalma's Insurance Fraud Letter and will be notified automatically about the 2 issues issued every month. Zalma's Insurance Fraud Letter is the source for insurance fraud professionals, where you can read, among other things, about why public adjuster Andrew Mitchell pled guilty to fraud, and that he, also known as Andrew Aga, on August 31, 2023, pleaded guilty to defrauding 4 St. Charles Parish, Louisiana residents of insurance money following Hurricane Ida. He has remained in custody since his arrest in January of 2023. You can read the full article about Mr. Mitchell and his crimes at the link on the blog posting. Then there's an article on more McClenny, Mosley and Associates issues. This is the 14th installment on the saga of McClenny, Mosley and Associates and its problems with the federal courts in the state of Louisiana, and what appears to be an effort to profit from what some magistrate and district judges indicate may be criminal conduct to profit from insurance claims relating to insurance damage to the public of the state of Louisiana, resulting from suits filed to recover for damages from hurricanes. You can read the full article and all of the fraud letter at the link. Then there's an article called Crime Doesn't Pay, It Costs, and why it can explain that a runner or capper must pay restitution to the insurers who he defrauded. The Eighth Circuit Court of Appeal was called upon to decide the amount of restitution owed by a participant in a recruitment and kickback scheme aimed at defrauding automobile insurance companies. The district court ordered restitution for every chiropractic patient that Abdisalan Hussein recruited from 2013 onward. And in the case called United States of America versus Abdulwahab Hussein, also known as Abdisalan A. Hussein, the United States Court of Appeal for the Eighth Circuit resolved the dispute. You can read the full article at the link provided in the blog. Then there's an article called A Different Kind of Insurance Fraud, where Parag Bashvar, 42, of Newark, pleaded guilty before U.S. District Judge Madeline Cox Arleo to information charging him with 1 count of conspiracy to commit mail fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit interstate transfer of stolen properties. Baizar, an Indian national, admitted that he defrauded various telephone providers and insurance companies out of millions of dollars by using stolen or fake identities to submit fraudulent claims for replacement of cellular devices and then reselling those devices in the United States. You can read the full article about his fraud at the link. Then there is, of course, good news from the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud, starting with the Las Vegas man who was sentenced to 27 months for wire fraud and a telemedicine scheme. Sergeyev Duman was sentenced for participating in a scheme to defraud private health insurance companies. You can read the full article and the other reports from the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud at the link. There's also an article called Strems Files for Bankruptcy. Will he get his $36 million? Scott Strems, a Florida lawyer known as public enemy #1 by Florida property insurance industry, after he filed thousands of unnecessary lawsuits, many of them on the same claim, has slipped into bankruptcy, putting a deep red line under an expensive and frustrating chapter in the state's insurance litigation crisis. You can read the full article about why Strems, who sold his law firm for $30 million, and then finds that the people to whom he sold it won't be able to pay the loan he gave them or the amount they offered to pay him. You can read the full article at the link. Then there is an article called Evidence of Arson is Not Needed to Defeat an Arson for Profit, where I explain that back in 2001, I personally examined under oath James E. Mitchell on behalf of his insurer, United National Insurance Company, who admitted to misrepresenting material facts when he applied for the insurance. As a result of that examination under oath and the testimony of the underwriter, United National decided to rescind the policy rather than accuse him of fraud and arson for profit, but still was able to refuse his claim for fire damage and only offered to return the premium he had paid. Of course, in an expression of chutzpah, unlimited gall, he sued, only to have the court conclude that the rescission was appropriate. You can read that full article at the link provided in the blog. Then there's a listing of health insurance fraud convictions, starting with one about a dentist who's back in jail for practicing without a license. William C. Gardner used to advertise himself as the best cosmetic dentist in Albuquerque. Now he's an inmate at the Sandoval County Detention Center, accused of defiantly practicing dentistry despite the revocation of his license more than 3 years ago. You can also read about this and dozens of other health insurance fraud convictions at the link. There's also an article called Rescission Results in a Policy Being Void from Its Inception, and why it can explain how arson for profit was a violent crime, and Imperial Casualty and Indemnity and Lloyd's Underwriters retained me back in the 1980s to advise concerning a fire claim presented by Levon Sagamonian and his wife as a result of a major arson fire and explosion that destroyed their home. The investigation took more than a year, multiple days of examination under oath, death threats to the claims investigator, and a bomb threat at my office that eventually established a leading case in California concerning rescission of insurance. Although Sagamonian was suspected of causing the fire at his home, that evidence was not sufficient, but there was sufficient evidence to move to rescind the policy because of multiple lies on the application for insurance. You can read the full article at the link in the blog. Then there's the listing of other insurance fraud convictions, starting with why an injured worker got help from a friend and a bat to produce a workers' compensation claim, and according to the ICW group, a Florida truck driver who was injured on the job made a few unfortunate decisions when she decided she wasn't ready to go back to work and wanted to make a little extra money, so she asked a friend to hit her with a baseball bat. Her friend complied, but not to the satisfaction of the truck driver. The injured worker grabbed the bat and took a few extra swings at herself for good measure. Eventually, she was found out, and you can read about her conviction and other than health insurance fraud convictions at the link provided in the blog. Finally, you can learn who I am and what I do for a living. And hopefully, you will enjoy the September 15, 2023 issue of Zalma's Insurance Fraud Letter, an essential source for the insurance fraud professional. Thank you for your attention.